Welcome to episode 64 of Ready Cop Nation. I'm your host, Alpha Mike. Subject today, trainer versus subject matter expert. Now, in law enforcement, training is one of those benefits that you get during your career, or it's something that you don't get during your career. There are things such as basic training, minimal training, or there are things called advanced training. Depending on where your department has its head at, is the type of training that you will receive. Part one of a two-part series, trainer versus subject matter expert, we will look at what the role of a trainer is versus what is the role of a subject matter expert, and how do you determine a subject matter expert? Is there some type of school they go to? Is there credits towards a certificate? Is it a certificate type program? How do I raise my hand and ask to be a subject matter expert? So there's a lot to unpack here in this two-part series, and I know it will educate our listeners. How do you get in contact with us? Well, there's only one way to get in contact with us, and that's ratercopnation.com. Scroll down to the bottom. You will see those icons pop up. That takes you to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Wadi, YouTube, and the list goes on. Where do you catch this program? Well, you can go to Rated Cop Nation, and of course, if you go to the section that says upcoming shows or current shows, you can hear the current show. And it'll also give you a calendar of all our upcoming shows into 2019. And I believe that's October of 2019. So it's a lot of shows that are listed there, and a lot of work that is coming behind that. So you can catch us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and so forth. We're almost everywhere. And the ratings or the downloads, and that's basically how the analytics work for us, are going up, up, up. But these are the high holies where people are too busy doing ho, ho, ho. And as long as that's going on, and the checkbook and the cash register is going off, the podcast sometimes gets turned off, only to be turned back on later in the future. So we will continue on this two-part series, trainer versus subject matter expert. Then we're going to go into weapon of choice. That is going to be an interesting show on what type of weaponry people consider using. And we're going to close out the season or the year with what to expect, what to be thankful for, and what to expect. And so it will be an interesting month, needless to say. If I want to get my weapon upgraded, painted, trigger refitted, work on some issues, internals, grip, slide, the list goes on. There's only one armorer that I truly believe in, and that is Pistol Pete. Pistol Pete has been in business for a good while now, turning out beautiful, I don't call them weapons, I call them artwork. And Pete was also the gunsmith to not hundreds, but thousands of law enforcement officers in Miami-Dade County. So for all your needs or anything that you want to do with your weapon, or Uncle Joe's weapon that's been in your safe for about, let's say, 20 years, and you want to upgrade it, make it look new like it came out of the box, call Pistol Pete, the gunsmith. A lot to unfold here, folks. Let's start off with one basic thing, and that is the definition of training. Law enforcement people get trained as they become civilians and they go into the sworn field. There you were, wet behind the ears, didn't know what you were doing. You filled out a law enforcement application. You went through this long process of getting chosen to become a proud member of whatever agency you applied for. And then all of a sudden the phone rings or the mailman brought your letter that says you have been accepted. Reality starts setting in and you're off to go into the academy. The training that you're going to receive in that academy, which can range from 4, 5, 6, maybe even 9 months in some cases, is going to be defined as basic training. Let me repeat that again for all those people that think that it's some type of advanced training. Academy entry training is classified as basic training. You're going to learn the basic formula to become an officer or a deputy at the initial stage, stage 1 of your career. So you'll be shown things such as shooting, driving, defensive tactics, how to speak, how to de-escalate people, how to deal with mentally ill, how to perform CPR, how to do first aid, how to have a proper stance, and the list goes on. But what you're really getting is basic training and a serious headache, because for the next 4, 5, 6, 9 months, whatever you have ahead of you, your training advisors or your instructors or your trainers will play with you as far as discipline by challenging you, by constantly pushing you. Because if you can't handle the discipline on the early aspect of that training and you're folding because of a little bit of pressure put on you, when you get out to the streets or the jail, depending what discipline you've picked, you'll fold under pressure also. So the discipline, the pressure, all that is important, and we're going to top it off with an ice cream scoop of calisthenics and exercise. Now, there's a lot of people that when they get into law enforcement, just before they get accepted to the academy, they have high hopes of fitting their uniform nice and tight. They start lifting weights, and they want to become Arnold Schwarzeneggers. They want to have that big, powerful bodybuilder look, and they want to, of course, impress their fans. They don't know who their fans are right now, but they know that they have a big fan base. But in actuality, they're making a mistake. So you don't want to be tight-muscled, Herculean, Hulk type of body. You want to be flexibility. You want to have the ability to run down the block. So let's start with very small little goals. Running down the block, catching the guy, and possibly having a little bit of wind for about 30 seconds of a fight. That would be the beginning of your basic training journey. Now, during there, you have a requirement of test that you have to pass, and as you pass every step of the way, you get closer and closer to graduation, leaving the civilian world to go into the sworn world, given a badge and ID, and you enter a fraternal group of people that all of a sudden you don't speak to anyone ever again that doesn't have what you have, which is credentials, a badge, and some war stories. You leave the civilian world once and for all. Oh, of course, you'll have a couple of civilian friends, like maybe your neighbor or your spouse's friends, where you casually speak to them in social gatherings like hi, how are you, and walk away. But you will probably dive in headfirst within the only world that you're going to love for the next 30 years or more, and that is the law enforcement world. Now, during this journey, after you've received your badge and everything else, we're setting this up for today's show, folks. Don't hang in there. I want you to hang in there for me. You're going to, after you've gotten in the ranks and you've gotten through the second phase of your training. So you got your academy training, you got your credentials, you got your badge. Now you're going through an FTO, field training type of training, on the job training, you can call it, for the civilian world. And you've successfully passed those two phases. And then you're running towards your probationary period. And bing, it's over. You are an official officer, deputy, whatever you want to call yourself. And now you can relax a little bit, not be as tense. But there's more facets of training coming your way. And this training is going to be some mandatory stuff that you're going to have to take yearly and within a certain given time period. And then every once in a while, the department will throw something at you that looks very similar to a dog bone. And you'll be allowed to go to an advanced training session. Well, you'll meet people from other agencies that have been around since the time of Moses, and they'll be in a class with you, and you'll say, I've reached the pinnacle of law enforcement. And you've entered the advanced stage. Now, I've painted the picture of your journey through law enforcement. So we're going to talk about first phase, phase one, the instructor or the trainer. Now, some agencies use a supervisory position for the position of instructor or trainer. For example, if you're part of a sheriff's office, sometimes they use the rank of corporal, which is slightly just a little bit above the deputy. But the reason they use this supervisory rank, because it's easier to give command of what you want done, because you're kind of sort of like a supervisor. So you should know more than the regular guy so you can give out these orders. Now, some other agencies just have trainers, and some of them are even civilians. Yes. The civilian world does mingle once in a while with the law enforcement world, from the chagrin of many law enforcement officers. But because their high command sometimes sits on their heads, this is why you have civilians in that capacity. Not that they know anything, but they're good test takers. They studied their books, and they even have something called a higher degree. So as a result of that, they're your trainer for the day. They'll teach you such important subjects as Communication 101, how to deal with other people, and how to deal with other people of other races. This is real good stuff. So you'll get some of that. But then, as you start focusing through your career, you're going to be introduced to the subject matter expert.
Next.
Occupation.
Stand-up philosopher.
What?
Stand-up philosopher. I coalesce the vapor of human experience into a viable and logical comprehension.
Oh, a bullshit artist.
But let's not put the cart before the horse, because it's not going to look good. Let's slow down and let's get back on the trainer aspect. So here you are, you're in your law enforcement role, and you're going to go to an array of what's considered mandatory type training that the state law enforcement governing body kind of imposes on every agency. Every so often you have to go to this mandatory setting. Firearms could be something that's every year, so you have to keep your P's and Q's on that, and you might even have to demonstrate 1 or 2 defensive tactics skills if your agency isn't in prehistoric times, as there are some out there that feel that, oh, well, what in the world would they need training in defensive tactics? They got that 25 years ago. We got to teach them again? So, as you go towards your mandatory training, you will meet individuals that are in two-fold, so 2 sets of individuals. One is the seasoned veteran that barely knows how to compose a sentence any longer. They do something very funny with their hands when they communicate with people with less seniority than them by pointing. It's a sort of ritual of sign language. They point at certain things, and you immediately need to know what the senior officer is telling you through these hand gestures. You will learn this as you get more advanced in your career. Let's not put, again, the cart before the horse. So that's going to be one of your instructors. The other one will be a young rookie that when you started might have been in kindergarten, and today they've got a fresh new look, brand new uniform. They've studied the manual back and forth, and they're ready to give you some instruction. And some of the instruction they're going to be giving you is, although it's not necessarily basic anymore, because you are, for God's sake, a law enforcement officer, but it is going to be a little bit more on the upscale. So we're going to be a little bit more nonchalant about this. You don't have to get so, stucky, like inside a suit. You can relax. You can unbutton your uniform button a little bit. You're a seasoned guy. You've got a couple of years under your belt. You don't have to get all tense. You're not a rookie anymore. So the guy that's training you along may have about 6 months more on you as far as seniority goes. Now, they're going to guide you through things that your agency says are important. So there are 3 facets of your journey training that you'll receive at this juncture. You're going to receive what's called agency training. In other words, your command staff, things that they feel Bob, our people are just not getting it. We're going to have to train the entire department. Now, it could be such things as, they're very important now, phone etiquette. Because they were never taught phone etiquette when they were young by their parents. So that's why the department now has to have a full-time person to teach phone etiquette. How to pick up the phone, how to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and how may I be of assistance. So there's a whole curriculum on this, and you may get it because your agency thinks it's very important. You'll also get some things as basic report writing with the computer, what correct buttons to use in order to submit your report. Now, you should have got this when the program first launched, but since you're the skater in the squad, you really don't do reports. Someone else does it. Here you are lost, don't understand, but I don't want you to worry. Your trainer is going to teach you in a real brief course of maybe about a couple hours on what buttons to use, and they might even throw an extra carrot, what language to put on the report. Now, when we're dictated on how to write reports, so let's say during your training you go to report writing 101, because your agency makes you actually compose sentences in proper English with correct grammar. Not all of us, and I can raise my hand, are English majors with masters or PhDs in grammar. So therefore, we have to go to these higher beings because their level of learning is almost unheard of on the planet, and they'll teach us, the simple mortals that we are, how to write and compose a sentence. Now, sometimes they make you use certain phrases that they just sound nice for the report. So we're going to add those. Now, hold on to that thought as we continue going to the next journey on what we're going to look at. So we talked about agency training. Next one is what the state mandates. State says, well, no. Every so often we've got to teach these officers on proper protocols on how to interact with other cultures. And we're going to define this as diversity training. And we're going to beat them over the head because they will receive this a gazillion times during their career. Because it's like an insurance package for the agency in case you say the wrong thing at the wrong time. So we'll teach you the same curriculum for your entire career, and we'll tell you it's all fresh and updated, and you'll believe it, and you'll go through your whole career in your diversity training 101. Now, that course may be taught by a higher being, a person with a higher level of education, and they may not have a badge in their pocket or in their wallet, so don't panic. They do have higher education. And they're going to teach you how to interact with people. Then there's other courses that the state might require, such as domestic violence laws, which I can give you the simple course right here. It's only going to be real short, maybe about 30 seconds. Here we go. Ready? If you're a cop and you get into a domestic call, they're going to take your gun and your ID. And that's the end of the course, folks. But, of course, we have professional training in law enforcement, so this course might take a little longer than the 30 seconds that I just gave you. So that would be about domestic violence. You need to know about those things, okay? And also you'll receive that your entire career, but every time we give it to you, we'll tell you that it's fresh and updated. Now, if you haven't gotten the picture, so far what you're getting is it's not basic training. Remember, we discussed that. You were a civilian back there. Now you have a badge. This is your training. This is the level that your agency feels comfortable in. Well, they don't want you to jump out of planes at 35,000 feet at this juncture or swim in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean with a rifle. No. We're at this level. We're just fine. We don't need to exceed this just yet. We'll tweak it as we go along. So now the last facet of training could be those things that are mandated by the federal government. You know, the swamp in Washington, D.C. Well, sometimes agencies ask for something called handout by the name of grants. And these grants that they use sometimes have attachments to them. Things that you have to do that you really don't want to do, but you're going to do it anyway because you need the money and you're going to do it. That's right. So you jump on the grant program, and all of a sudden you're teaching things that the feds want you to teach, like no frisking people. So that's bad. You don't want to do that. Or they teach you on when you pull somebody over, make sure you're not pulling the wrong person over because that could be racially unbalanced. Okay? And make sure you have a good excuse when you pull people over. Just don't pull them over because you can. So that would be the federal type of pilot program in our training pilot that we're kind of putting the picture together. So you have 3 elements of training. Agency bosses think you should have. B, the state where you hold your certificate. And the federal government, if you want some of these free carrots, you've got to do a little dance. So that's your basic 3. Now, within the agency, they have certain certificates that they've given you in that basic training. And one of them is with firearms. So every year now, not every couple of years, not every decade, because that does exist out there, folks. Hello, is this thing working? That does exist, folks. Some agencies. Every year now, you're going to receive like a little survival course. Does it sound fancy? Survival course. And they'll, of course, discuss how to shoot. And you have to qualify. And it's very informal. It won't be very, very, very difficult. Just have to make sure that the bullets have to hit the actual target and within the scope of the target. And so we can say that you passed. And if you have a taser, that funny electrical thing on, we'll have to kind of recertify you then in that. And we might even talk about how to use force. Like, we don't want to give you any physical thing to do. No, you're good there. You did that a long time ago when you were in the academy as a rookie. So you don't have to updo that. You don't have to wrestle or anything on the ground. But we're going to tell you if you mess up, how we're going to find out you messed up, and we're going to get you. We are going to get you. So we're going to throw that in there too. Okay? So we've got use of force, we got firearms, we got taser, and some of us are getting this funny little thing in our check called first responder pay. So I might have to teach you how to give CPR. You know, that kind of stuff. You know, the lock your hands, your fingers on the chest, and they call compressions. So we'll teach you that. But don't worry. We're going to change that up every decade or so. So it's fresh. It looks good. Okay? And you can keep a card in your wallet. Make it look even better. So we'll teach you some of that. So this is the pilot program that your agency has developed for every officer in the department. It doesn't matter where you came from. What I just explained is what's on paper. The difference is you've read the paper before, but it didn't sound like I'm telling you it sounds. But the reason I know how it looks, smells, tastes is because I was there. I even have the T-shirt in my closet. So I'm an expert at that. So as a result, this is what you get. This is the standard bland material that you're going to get. Now, remember I told you that every so often they're going to pick on you. Okay? Now, let's not get to the advanced stuff yet. Not yet. I know you're trying to jump into that advanced stuff, but we're not there yet. Now, every once in a while, you'll make a mistake. It could be you pulled over the wrong person, and you said the wrong thing. Something just didn't go well with your arrest. You're working in a correctional environment, and you might have let an F-bomb go. Who knows? Something bad might have happened like that. And now your supervisor has deemed you needing better training. So you're going to go to what's called a refresher course. In that press, it's like, you know how the home sometimes, especially around the laundry room, gets that foul little odor of dirty socks? So in order to get that smell out of the laundry room, you put little fresh things up on, you plug them into the wall, and they kind of like emanate nice perfume setting. So it's a refresher. That's what I want you to think what refreshing is. It's like deodorant that you plug into the wall. And you're going to get that, and it's going to make you a better officer as a result of that. Now, the last facet that we're going to talk about in this trainer aspect is your supervisor. That's right, folks. Regardless of your rank in law enforcement, all the type of discipline that you've picked in law enforcement, you will be subject to having that. Some of you might be confused if you're in law enforcement and say, my supervisor teach me something? They never teach me anything. They just tell me if that was good or not, but teach me? But in reality, all supervisors, regardless of rank, the person that's above you should be training you on certain things. So these are the aspects of training that we're going to look at when we get into law enforcement. Now, your trainer could have and should have some certificate that actually showed them how to do a presentation. Now, for a lot of us that were in the military, for a lot of us that have been in law enforcement, we know that there is such a thing as killing people by PowerPoint. And there you are, you're Monday morning, 8 o'clock, all fresh, drinking coffee, just took a shower, bam, life is feeling good. You sit in a class, it's an 8-hour class, and the subject is CPR, and the instructor throws on the PowerPoint, and you look at the bottom right corner of the PowerPoint to see how many pages are on there, and you notice 147? Yes, folks, I actually worked with a person that did that. Yep, sure did. And they're actually still working, too. So that is going to be a fun course for you. You're going to have 147 slides on CPR, and you will enjoy those 8 hours. That's what you're getting. Now, a lot of what I'm talking about is kind of sarcastic. Of course, I know that's what you're thinking. But I'm trying to give you emphasis on that your agencies, a lot of these agencies just have a bland type of training. Training is a formality to say that, we've upgraded you. But in actuality, the type of training that you should receive, the more advanced stuff, they don't give to everybody. They only give to people that are in certain roles that need it. Or maybe the agency that you're in, you can identify with this. The same people go to training and they don't do anything. But they go to every training session. I know, I've seen them. And there they are, every class. They're professional students, perpetual students, like Kilo says, perpetual students. And there they are, learning, never to use their craft, and they don't do anything for the agency. But they go to class. So those people exist also. So you've got to navigate through this, you've got to swim through this, and you've got to try to keep your head above water. When I was an instructor, I told everybody there's no way you can sit in a course for 8 hours or whatever length of time the course is, 40 hours, 24 hours, 4 hours, and not learn anything. There's something that you can put in your training toolbox and take it with you as you learn new things. So that's the standard of training that you're going to have. Some instructors are better than others in delivering this. I worked with a bunch of guys that were very, very good, and they were professionals at almost anything that they taught. Their presentations were above board, but they were never really experts in what they were teaching, but they taught a good program that you knew what to do. So if I had to classify those individuals, I would classify them as good instructors. But not everybody's at that level. And you have to navigate through this. A part of learning is self-learning as well. A lot of people in law enforcement believe the agency has to teach me. Yes, they do. But you have to teach yourself too. So I encourage you, the listener, if you're in law enforcement, to get involved. Hook up to, and we'll have these on our show notes, a bunch of organizations out there that give you training free of charge, webinars and stuff like that, but to keep you consistent to what the industry is doing, and you're not decades behind. because some agency heads, believe it or not, they want their people kind of barefooted, stupid, and in the squad car. And then they receive that advanced education, so they know everything and you don't. And you go through your career not knowing anything, but they do. So I guess you'll be in somewhat okay hands. So you have to grow. And as far as shooting is involved, here's a perfect example. If you want to go with the standard minimal training that you received in shooting, then so be it. But if you want to be a proficient in shooting student, okay, you want to go out there and you want to practice. And you want to go into your wallet and maybe spend some money and go to advanced courses if your agency's not willing to send you. Hello, Alpha, I put in 18 classes advanced and they were all denied. Yeah, so that means you might have to break out a $10 bill and do it yourself because it's for your betterment. And sometimes when you do that, that might make you a subject matter expert in the future. Well, I've kind of bored you enough, but I'm really setting this up for where we're going. And our next episode 65, as we start talking about the subject matter expert, I'm going to start putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, from training advisor to trainer to subject matter expert, how they all jive and gel together, how agencies can use that to better their agencies, and what standards that each of those disciplines in training should have. It gets more interesting and probably a lot less sarcastic as we go along. What have you been listening to, folks? You've been listening to episode 64, Trainer versus Subject Matter Expert, and I am breaking down the elements of a trainer in this series. You can always look up our training programs that are coming up on our website, 09tg.org. That's 09tg.com. And we'll post that on the show notes, and we always have something on there. A podcast that we had about training, we're going to bunch them all up on that website. But if that's too much to learn and you didn't have a pencil or a crayon ready to write it down, RadarCopNation.com. That's it, RadarCopNation.com. And just navigate through there. You can hear all our podcasts. We've got a lot of stuff on training. A lot of stuff on training coming up in 2019 especially. Listen, you might learn something. Believe me, I know what I'm doing. I've done this before. So, we have other shows coming up, and one of the other shows coming up in the future, mentoring, which could be regarded as a curse word in some agencies. But mentoring, that's all a part of even what I'm talking about here today. While you're listening, that can be a part of it. Mentoring. It's a protocol. So, it has been my pleasure, my honor to be your host on Raider Cop Nation. Once again, trainer versus subject matter expert. This is Alpha Mike, signing out.
Guide her through the night with a light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home.
Somewhere right about the height.
4323, QSR 1322.